All right, guys, on to video 3 of my little series here of budget tips and tricks for the amateur new guy to the scene for Tri-5 Chevy cars. Covered it in part 1. A guy messaged me. He's just drug one in. He knows nothing about them, so I'm giving tips and tricks on how to save money and what works and what doesn't work. Here we go. Now I'm going to talk about brakes. So brakes is actually one of the biggest deals to upgrade on a Tri-5 Chevy car. Originally these cars had 4-wheel drum brakes, and actually there's one right here. So I'm going to cover this real quick before I forget. So this is the backing plate, but this is your front drum. So they originally are supposed to have a spring on them, and all it does is dissipate heat. So something that they engineered, it's over my head. I'm not a brake engineer, but they did it in 55, so it has to have them. I've drug a lot of these in, they didn't have them. Also, if you're going to put on aftermarket wheels and you're running drum brakes, you see these 3 rivets right here, one there, one there, and one there. You need to grind those off completely so your wheel will seat flat on that hub. If you don't, your wheel will wobble. Ask me how I know. So there's now, back in the 90s, I didn't have this this kind of stuff available as there is now. Speedway Motor sells a disc brake kit for $250. They have a couple of versions, and I have ran both. I've installed anywhere 4 or 5 kits. I've installed 3 G-body kits and 2 Chevelle kits. That's the 2 versions they offer. And basically the difference is rotor diameter. Now I'm not 100% because I can't remember, but I want to say it's like a 1/2 inch difference in rotor diameter is all it is. It's either like a 10.5 rotor to an 11-inch rotor, or it's 11 to 11.5, something like that. I don't remember. But you need to be thinking of that, because if you're going to run some old, like say you got some old 5-slot mags that are 14-inch and you want to put them on your Tri-5 Chevy, but you want to do disc brakes, you probably ought to try the G-body kit, because some G-bodies, most G-bodies actually had 14-inch wheels. So you may get lucky with your caliper, not hitting the back side of the rim. I'm not saying they'll work. It's just going to be a shot in the dark. But if you're going to run like 15s, the Chevelle ones definitely work. Now, I will say this, between the G-body and the Chevelle kit, I recently watched a video on YouTube from a well-known shop, very well-known shop. A guy took his Tri-5 Chevy in there. It had a lot of little issues here and there. It was a brake kit for a G-body on there, and the guy at the shop told the car owner that that was the incorrect brake setup for that heavy of a car. I am not a brake engineer, and I can tell you right now, I 100% totally disagree. If you look up curb weight for a 1987 Chevy Monte Carlo SS and a curb weight for a 55 two-door hardtop, they're damn near identical. So I know for a fact, back in the 90s, I had a street car, 2-door post 55 Chevy with a 383. I had bucket seats in it. I had racing buckets in it. I did not have a front bumper. But when I rolled over the scales with me in it, it was 3140. So these Tri-5 Chevy cars are not as heavy as a lot of people think. That's why people drag race the shit out of them. So anyway, if you're talking about a heavy car for a brake, that's just fine, because a G-body is Regal, Cutlass, Grand Prix, Monte Carlo. So they kind of reference that for 78 to 88, and it's GM mid-size rear-wheel drive cars. I know for sure 1978, there was something up with that rotor. I don't remember what it was. It's like the rotor is something weird, so it's technically 79 to 88. Now they changed from standard lug nuts to metric, I want to say in 81, maybe 82, I don't remember. I think it's 81. So if you have to get a replacement rotor for a G-body kit and you're still running your standard lug nuts, tell them it's a 1980 Monte Carlo or Malibu or Regal, something like that. Now, that kit from Speedway, I have installed 4 or 5 kits, and I'm pretty sure it's 5. This is the first time, because this is the kit I put on my 4-door outside. I did it this past summer. I ran into an issue, and it's the very first time. And what I think it is a mispackaging. What I got in the box for caliper mounting bolts to the caliper brackets were these. And I knew when I unpackaged them and looked at it, that did not look right. I've never seen caliper bolts with that long of a head on them. What happened to me is I could not, when I tried to bolt the caliper on, I could not get that to catch a thread, not one. Now I know if I would have called Speedway no doubt they would have sent me another set out immediately. But I was afraid I'd get back the same exact ones. So what I did was I came into the garage. I've got spare crap everywhere. These are for G-body. If you compare these together, they're the exact same length, have the exact same shaft size, same Allen head, same diameter of the head. The only difference is the thread. You got more thread on the G-body one. So I had a bunch of these laying around and they absolutely worked. And I drove the car and the brakes work awesome. So that may be what you run into. Like say you're working on your car on a Sunday with disc brake swap and you want to drive your car to work Monday and you run into the same issue. Go to the parts store, tell them you got a 1985 Chevy Monte Carlo. It doesn't matter what engine size it is, 3.8, 4.3, 5.0, doesn't matter, it's the same caliper. But you need caliper mounting bolts. These are very inexpensive at the parts store. As a matter of fact, you can get a reman caliper at my local O'Reilly's and it's like $12, and it comes with brand new bolts and everything. So if they don't have the caliper bolts in stock, you could buy a reman caliper and get 2 of them, you know what I mean? But you're gonna need 4, but you get what I'm saying. Anyway, another thing that is might mess up some people is some people would think when you put disc brakes on your car that you have to have a vacuum brake booster. You do not. You can still run a manual master cylinder without power. It'll stop just fine. So this is what I've done it several times. I learned this a long time ago from an old school hot rodder that had a Pro Street 56 Chevy back in the 80s. He was a friend of my uncle's. He was still running a single reservoir master cylinder. I remember when I drug my first 55 in, of course the brakes were shot on it. I took the original master cylinder off and I bought a rebuild kit for it. And I went in there with a little brake hone and I tried to clean it up, but it was so pitted from rust, I couldn't get the pits out of it. They were very deep. So what I found out was you can use a master cylinder, single reservoir from a 1962 Chevy pickup. It's only a 2-bolt mounting flange. The originals are 4-bolt. I've got my holes welded up on the top on this one, but they have a 4-bolt mounting flange. So when you take your original master cylinder off, put your nuts back up here anyway because your pedal assembly bolts to the firewall. Anyway, it'll still mount on with just the 2 just fine. Now your brake line that you have on the car, it seems like it goes in an angle right here at the front. You kind of have to tweak it over just a little bit, bend it just a little bit, and then it'll bolt right in there. But you can get a brand new master cylinder, not remanufactured, from my local O'Reilly's for 30 bucks for 1962 Chevy pickup. But it is a single reservoir master cylinder. Basically what that means is it's on the dangerous side because one reservoir, one brake line feeds all 4 brakes. Now, if you have a leak and you don't catch it and you go out and jump in your car and take off, your brake pedal might hit the floor. If you have a dual reservoir master cylinder, there's a divider in the middle. So your front brakes are separate from your rear. So if you get a leak, say at your rear wheel cylinder, you've still got your front brakes to stop you. But if you are dead set on running a single master cylinder, and I will say if you're going to have babies in the car, I would do a dual reservoir just for safety. But it is quite a bit more money to change out, because there's other stuff that has to go with it. If you're dead set on running that single reservoir, make sure your emergency brake is properly adjusted and working, just in case you have to grab it. Now, if you do a dual reservoir master cylinder, you can buy a kit. All over eBay, all over the manufacturers, everywhere have these. You can buy a dual reservoir kit for these cars, bolts right on, and it comes with 2 little bitty teeny tiny brake lines that are pre-bent going into a proportioning valve. You can usually get that set up for around, I don't know, like 120, 150 bucks or somewhere. I'm just ballparking it. But you need to know on the proportioning valve what your car is. So just basically, if you're going to put a Speedway disc brake kit on the front of your car and you're still going to run your rear drums, make sure that proportioning valve is for discs and drums. Those proportioning valves, 3 different ones. They have drum, disc, disc. So make sure that is matched. It's all about line pressure in there. Now you could get an adjustable one that has a knob on it. You know, you just got to dial it in, tune it in, and that's what I have on my car, and it's down low on the frame. But anyway, the other thing is you have to supply the other brake line assembly that goes down here, because now instead of having one single line feeding everything, you've got a dual system. So do not be shocked when you buy that brake line pre-bent set from a Tri-5 supplier. when it comes in this box that they folded it up a couple of times to get it to fit in the box. So just be aware, those are going to be folded up. Your nice little pretty pre-bent lines are going to be folded up, and then when you unfold them, they're never as nice as they were. You got to sit there and tweak on them and tweak on them. So anyway, guys, that'll pretty much cover your brakes. Now I want to talk about, I think we'll talk about rear end swaps and shocks and the steering side of the car, like the idler arm and stuff like that. So here we go. Let's get started with number 3.